Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Dream Career Talk Show. Dream Career Talk Show is where we bring people from various streams of careers talking about their experiences, sharing their experiences, their knowledge, and helping us with the ways that people can use to build their dream careers. So, today we have a very interesting topic, and today we have somebody who is very special, right? Phil Johnson, who is the founder, master of business leadership program. He has been an executive coach for past 22 plus years. Phil comes with over 4 decades of experience working in various industries, right? He talks about something very inspirational there. He talks about inspirational leadership. He talks about the topic which is very hot today and it is very important for all the leaders, which is nothing but emotional intelligence. He talks about higher consciousness, freedom from ego based fear, career, personal, and corporate success, how people can achieve. So, these are some of the important topics that Phil has been sharing knowledge, and there are many other things that he comes with huge experience, and he has been creating a huge impact out there through his programs and impacting through social media, through different platforms. And today we have the privilege to have Phil Johnson with us on this show live to share his knowledge. And Phil, very excited to have you here. Thank you for accepting the invite and being here on Dream Career Talk Show.
Fasa, thank you for the great introduction. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Welcome, Phil. Welcome once again. And let's get started with your career, Phil, right? When we are talking about dream career here, how did you get started with your career and how did you build your dream career?
Um, that's a great question. I've actually been on this path for 68 years. Not sure where you'd like me to start, um, but prior to becoming an executive coach 22 years ago, I'd spent 20 years as an executive in the semiconductor industry. Um, Traveling about 60,000 miles per year throughout North America and the Pacific Rim. My journey actually goes back far before that.
Yes, Phil, continue, please.
Oh, okay. Well, you and I had a conversation yesterday. Um, is there anything in particular you'd like me to highlight from our discussion?
Right. So, yeah. So basically, you found your dream career in coaching executives, in actually becoming those emotionally intelligent leaders and getting success in their careers. And
Yeah, yes, helping individuals and organizations succeed by developing their inspirational leadership and emotional intelligence has been a passion of mine for really the past 54 years,
wow,
and I've
that's
been
amazing.
doing it full time officially as the founder of the Master of Business Leadership program for the last 22 years. I've coached executives and organizations um, all over the world. There are currently MBL alumni in the United States, Canada, UK, Europe, Japan, Germany, Bosnia, Africa, Australia, the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia. And I've helped organizations generate over $1.5 billion in revenue, as well as advance in their career and create personal and corporate success using the program.
That's super amazing. But Phil, want to understand from you, like you are in semiconductor industry for about 22 years, and that's another wonderful industry to be in where there is a lot of money, success, and that's one of the hot industries to be in. And you being there successful, and then you taking this step of moving out from there and then getting into executive coaching. How did this happen?
Um, I recognized that there was a growing need for the development of truly authentic, emotionally intelligent leaders, and that there was a huge gap in our development, and it was really impacting results both on a career, personal, and corporate perspective. The current level of employee engagement worldwide, according to Gallup, is around 13%. Low levels of employee engagement are costing the US economy over $1 trillion a year alone. And there's almost a one-to-one correlation between the level of employee engagement and the level of customer engagement. So if your employees don't feel engaged, if they don't feel safe to take risk, if they don't feel they're in a trusting environment, then that's not only impacting them, but it's impacting your customers. So there's a real and growing need for the development of emotional intelligence, especially because of the accelerating rate of global change we're all experiencing. And we've got a 500 million year old brain that doesn't like change. So we really need to be developing our emotional intelligence to deal with the fear and anxiety that change triggers in us. So the development of our emotional intelligence is a critical part of our evolution that's missing. Our educational system and our employment system has focused primarily on our ability to do intellectual labor, and they've done little to develop our emotional intelligence. And because of the accelerating rate of global change, we need that more than ever. More and more companies are hiring, promoting, and developing the emotional intelligence of their people. And I can give you an example of a company that's currently doing over $1 trillion a year in revenue, and their primary hiring focus is on the search for individuals with above average levels of emotional intelligence.
Right.
Would you like to know who that company is?
Right. Definitely want to know the company and how they have implemented. And yeah, that would be great.
The company is Apple. That's
Wow.
why when you walk into an Apple store, that energy you feel is an example of a more emotionally intelligent environment. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're trying to understand your pain and, if possible, offer a solution. They want you to have a great experience. So maybe you'll tell your friends and they'll tell their friends. And if you think about it, for everybody that's been in an Apple store, that energy you feel is an example of a more emotionally intelligent environment. And it's a very different energy from the stores surrounding it. So because of the accelerating rate of global change, the development of emotional intelligence represents the future of organizational development. And more companies and individuals are moving in this direction.
Right. And when you were sharing this, I could recollect the memory of me walking into that San Jose, the Apple store. At that time, I was not consciously looking at this, but when I recollect right now, I can see like that was really emotional intelligent in the way they handled their customers. And I believe we talk about innovation in Apple, but emotional intelligence part, we never saw that. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I loved one term that you used, Phil, when you were talking about education, and you spoke about intellectual labor. Right today, a lot of people walking, working towards their degrees and looking at positions. How do you look at this?
Yeah, I think I understand it, but in focusing so much on intellectual labor, excuse me, they're really missing a huge opportunity to develop their emotional intelligence. Um, See, our ability to do intellectual labor is genetic. If you have a high IQ, your parents had a high IQ, their parents had a high IQ, and you simply inherited those genes. And whereas Not everybody can have 160 IQ. Anybody, everybody can develop their emotional intelligence. And the development of our emotional intelligence um, has a massive impact on our results that far exceeds um, our intellectual intelligence. Um, um, UC Berkeley did a 40-year study comparing IQ with EQ. And they determined that EQ, emotional intelligence, was 400% more valuable in determining success than IQ. And let me give you a, well, let me back up. Let me give you a numerical example that kind of illustrates the difference. Think of IQ as somebody giving you $10,000 a day for 31 days. So at the end of 31 days, you've got $310,000. Think of emotional intelligence as a penny that doubles in value every day for 31 days. So day one, you've got a penny. Day two, you've got 2 pennies. Day three, you've got 4 pennies. Day 31, you've got $10.7 million. And if you continue the example, day 40, you've got over 5 billion. Day 50, you've got over 5 trillion. The point is that it doesn't take any more effort to go from day 30 to day 31 than it did to go from day 1 to day 2, but it's a continually building process. So the ROI that comes from the development of your emotional intelligence keeps increasing in value. There are organizations, there are executives I've been working with for over 13 years because the ROI, as they master the habits and micro skills in the program, their results keep getting greater, greater, and greater, not only from a career, but also from a personal and a corporate perspective. So the development of our emotional intelligence guarantees success. It guarantees success. It leads to becoming an inspirational leader, becoming more emotionally intelligent. It raises your level of consciousness about what's going on in you and around you. And it frees you from your ego-based fear that often stops us from taking action and moves us outside of our comfort zone. The reality is that most people, although they may want better results, they're really not willing to take the actions
Right.
to create those results. It requires they move outside of their comfort zone, and through the fear and anxiety that triggers in them. So what they do instead is they focus on trying to use a title or position-based power to control and manipulate others to get them to change. And that has never worked. It will never work. If you need a title to get people to follow you, you're not a leader. If your behavior, if your actions don't inspire followers, you're not a leader. You're simply using position-based power to try and control and manipulate others. And that's what's led to the toxicity we experience in most organizations. Oh,
Yeah, I think I can't disagree to this because, of course, like people who are looking at their positions and using that as the leadership style, then does not really help. And one thing you spoke about is, Phil, you shared with us the fact that has come from the study of Berkeley is EQ 400% more success than IQ. Right now, I come from IT world. I was there with IT industry for about 17 plus years. Now, a lot of people in the IT industry talk to me and then say, "Hey, I have great IQ, right? I have great technology skills. So why do you think I cannot grow as a leader in the IT industry? And do I still need that EQ?"
yes. Have you ever heard the saying that when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail?
Yeah.
When all you have, when the way you've been succeeding in your life to this point has been based on your IQ, that's how you try to handle every situation. Um, and typically people have with high IQs have low levels of emotional intelligence, because when they get scared, they tend to run to their strength and away from their weakness. But
Right.
for those individuals that are willing to do the emotional labor that the development of their emotional intelligence requires, it will have an amazing impact on their results, both on a personal and a career, from a personal and career perspective. You see, emotional intelligence is a whole other type of intelligence than intellectual intelligence. And quite frankly, they're meant to work together. They're meant to work synergistically together. Think of it this way. Here's a picture. Picture an iceberg. The 1/10 of the iceberg sticking above the water, think of that as intellectual intelligence. And the 9/10 under the water is emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Try and imagine what kind of an impact that would have on your results if you develop the 9/10 of the iceberg under the water. The development of our emotional intelligence is far more important than our ability to do intellectual labor. And especially with the accelerating rate of global change we're all experiencing, where we're all being ripped out of our comfort zones, emotional intelligence is a must-have career and life capability. And the thing about emotional intelligence is that anybody can develop it. Everybody can develop their emotional intelligence by doing the emotional labor that requires. So if people spend a fraction of the amount of time and effort developing their emotional intelligence that they do on trying to get titles and designations, degrees, they would be far better off.
Right. Yeah. I agree. And that was a very good example of iceberg, right? The tip of the iceberg, and beneath it, the EQ. Now, if we look at in terms of the growth of any professional, right, and if we look at one important aspect in the corporate world, which is attrition, right? So, Phil, do you believe that if leaders have great EQ, right, they will be able to take care of this attrition and be able to create more happy employees than the ones with IQ who are creating more promotions or other things on the other hand?
Yes, absolutely. Um, Let me go back in our evolution a bit to explain why. um, because we've evolved from tribes, from herds, it's been over millions of years. Um, it's been important for us to be able to sense who's trying to help us and who's trying to hurt us. So over the hundreds of millions of years, we've developed these specialized neurons, brain cells in our prefrontal cortex that brain scientists call mirror neurons. And they're able to sense. That's why when you walk into a room, you can sense the energy in a room. When you have a conversation with somebody, you can sense whether they're trying to help you or take advantage of you. So the development of your emotional intelligence enables you to demonstrate greater trustability that people sense, that they pick up on. And that inspires them to lower their walls and become less resistant, judgmental, and attached to outcome. It inspires them to want to be around you more. Conversely, the opposite is true. The lack of emotional intelligence creates the need to try and control and manipulate others. And that's what comes across in your energy, in your behavior. And it tends to cause people to be more defensive, to be less trusting. So absolutely, the development of emotional intelligence leads to higher levels of engagement and greater trustability. And there's also something, because of the accelerating rate of change, people can't keep up. So there's something called the trust economy, which is growing much faster than the traditional economy. It's currently
Right.
estimated at over $10 trillion a year. Um,
Wow.
People are relying more and more on the people around them they trust in order to make decisions. So the development, your network of trusted advisors as an individual or as an organization is the greatest asset you have. And the level of trustability you're able to demonstrate is a direct reflection of your level of emotional intelligence.
Right. And I love this term that you use, the trust economy, right? Because I believe as leaders and even as coaches, right? If you are able to develop this economy, the trust economy, where people are able to trust you, then I think you can grow well as a leader, you can grow well as a coach, because that's how like everything starts. So that's amazing, Phil. And
Think about
yeah,
this. Let me just make one other comment about that. As an organization, you may have the best technology and the best pricing, but if your customers don't trust you, they'll find a way not to deal with you.
right.
Conversely, you may not have the best technology or the best pricing, but if your customers trust you, they'll find a way to deal with you.
Right. Definitely. That is a great example, Phil. And customers, to convert them into clients again, it's all based on trust, right? So I think that is how it takes care. And now, Phil, we have been hearing this become a buzzword, emotional intelligence for leaders in the corporate industry, right? But I believe still there is less awareness about emotional intelligence. So can you help us define like what is emotional intelligence, and how can somebody acquire this emotional intelligence as a leader?
Um, a very simple um, explanation of emotional intelligence is that it's what enables you to leave your comfort zone and move through the fear and anxiety that triggers in you as you move towards the vision of what it is you're trying to achieve. Um, so it allows you to feel the fear that change triggers in you biologically and move through it, as opposed to that fear keeping you stuck in your comfort zone. um, oh,
Yeah, and how can a leader develop emotional intelligence? Like IQ is something that people say, okay, again, like you work on various things, you develop your IQ. What about EQ? How can people develop this? Are there any is there any step by step process that people can follow?
yeah, it's called the Master of Business Leadership program.
Of
Um,
course.
but when you talk, don't talk about leaders, don't talk about leadership as a position. Leadership is not a position, it's a choice that we all need to make. We all need to become better leaders. It's not a title, it's not a position. And the first step in developing your leadership is you have to develop an emotional connection with the vision of a desired result that's stronger than the fear that's going to get generated in you as you leave your comfort zone in the pursuit of that result. If the emotional connection you have to what it is you're trying to achieve isn't stronger than your fear, you may want better results, but you won't be willing to do the work. You won't be willing to do the emotional labor of moving through your fear in order to get those results. So the first step is always the same. You have to see that vision is there's only two things that will motivate us to leave our comfort zone: pain or passion.
Of
So for
course.
most people, they're not connected with the passion. What motivates them to take action is pain. They have an urgent desire for better results than they're currently getting. So you have to connect emotionally as opposed to intellectually. You have to connect emotionally to what it is you're trying to achieve. And that's got to create the motivation in you to take action and move through your fear in order to achieve your desired results.
Right. And I think one of my friend here also says loved it when he heard about pain and passion, because of course the two reasons what helps people to move ahead, right, or the drive is either their pain or passion. Right now, you have been passionate about coaching executives, especially in the emotional intelligence domain. Well, working with, I'm sure you have worked with thousands of professionals in the past 22 plus years. So what are the big mistakes you see that leaders make when they are actually driving teams?
Um, they think that if they think that you can develop emotional intelligence by reading a book or having a conversation or watching a video. That's not possible. Um, the development of emotional intelligence is an experiential process. In other words, you can only connect the dots in hindsight after you've taken a leap of faith to begin doing the work, doing the emotional labor that emotional intelligence requires. So you may understand the concepts intellectually, and you be able to repeat those concepts intellectually. But if you don't understand emotional intelligence on an emotional level, on an experiential level of what those concepts mean emotionally, you're not developing your emotional intelligence. So what often happens is that people know the words, but the words they speak aren't reflected in their behavior. So they think they understand emotional intelligence intellectually, but they really don't, because they don't understand it emotionally. And the only way you can understand it emotionally is by doing the work that the development of emotional intelligence requires. So people often think they know more than they do, but it's not reflected in their behavior or their results.
Right, understand. And what are the best practices, like if you have seen people, the most successful leaders that you have trained, right? What are those maybe three best practices that they follow that helps them to become successful as a leader?
They use the habits that they learn in the MBL program to develop the capabilities I've already mentioned. And as they practice the habits, see, the more you practice something, the more automatic it becomes. Uh, it's called automaticity. That's why you no longer have to think about tying your shoes or how to drive a car. They all start out as conscious activities, but the more you practice them, they convert into unconscious habits. That's the process called automaticity. um, so the more you practice the habits and skills required to develop these capabilities, the more mastery you have over them, so that it doesn't require as much conscious thought. You just practice them unconsciously. See, unconscious confidence is the key to mastery. Um, we're only conscious about 3 to 5% of the time. The rest of the time, we're relying on our habits to determine our behavior and our results. So the more you strengthen those habits, um, the more automatic they become.
Right. And in the beginning, you spoke about energies, Phil. So we have different types of emotions, right? All human beings. So do different emotions have different energy frequencies as well?
Yes, they do. Um, and if you, I don't know if I can share. I have a slide. If you're interested, I can show you what those energy frequencies are if you want. Is that
Mm-hmm.
possible?
We can try it out here.
Let me
Share
just
screen.
Let me just grab it for a second here. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Um,
Because I strongly believe, as my mentor says, right, energy is what will help you to get successful. Higher energy level you operate, more successful you become in your life. Right?
yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. So can I share my screen with you?
Yes, there is a. Are you able to see the
Yeah, I've
share
got it.
screen
I've got
option?
it. Yeah. Hang on here. Can you see my screen?
Not it. Like if you can try once again, like there is a share screen option below.
Yeah, I've
Just
already
try to.
clicked on it. Let me
Oh,
just
no,
let me
it's
try
not it
again.
shared.
Uh, share screen is canceled. Make sure you okay. So share
Okay,
and
and
share
any
screen.
application that you have.
I think you have to enable the all
Okay.
these tips don't show share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how about now? Can you see my screen?
No, not it.
Okay, if you go into your security settings,
Yeah.
probably down at the bottom, if
Mhm.
you look under settings, um, there's probably a button you can click on that will allow me to share my screen.
Yeah, I have done that. Right. Maybe we can try again at the end. We will continue here.
Okay.
Looks
So
like.
to answer your question, um, hang on, let me just get out of this. Yes, each emotion has a different energy frequency associated with that emotion. And the lower energy frequencies are things like fear and shame and guilt and anger. And as you learn to lower your walls, you move into the higher energy frequencies of acceptance and love, leading towards enlightenment, gratitude, joy. Those are higher frequency emotions. But yes, every emotion has a unique energy frequency associated with that emotion.
Right. And when we talk about energies and emotions, now coming back to the emotional intelligence, right? What are the three main challenges you have seen that these leaders or the people face when they are developing that emotional intelligence?
There are three primary sources of resistance we have to change, all of us. Two of them are biological and one is sociological. I'll explain briefly. The first biological one is whenever we take an action that moves us outside of our comfort zone, there's a part of our old lizard brain that's been around for about 500 million years to try and keep us safe and alive called the amygdala. And what it does when it sees us leaving our comfort zone is it secretes a hormone into our bloodstream called cortisol. And that causes the executive center of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, to shut off. And we go into what psychologists refer to as an amygdala hijack, where we often say and do things we later regret. Um, but some of us lash out, some people run away, some people freeze like a deer in the headlights. And when that happens in conflict situations, often people die. When it happens in business or personal situations, relationships die. We burn trust. So, as an analogy, if you think of your amygdala as a very frightened 4-year-old child, the development of our emotional intelligence acts like a big brother or big sister to quiet that amygdala response down and better enable us to feel the fear and anxiety that change and innovation triggers in us and move through it towards what it is we're trying to achieve, as opposed to allowing that fear to keep us trapped in our comfort zones. The second source of biological resistance we have to change is our existing habits. A habit is a neural network pathway we developed in our brain through our actions. And once we develop one of these pathways, it's there forever. And although we can develop new habits at any age, it's called brain plasticity or neurogenesis, those new habits are always going to be weaker than the old habits, um, even if they work better than the old habits, because there's an insulation layer around the neural network pathway called myelin. And when we're younger, it's thicker than when we're older. So there's going to be an ongoing internal battle within us for control um, between our old and new habits. The third source of resistance we have to change is sociological, meaning the people around us don't want us to change. Because if we change and start to get better results, that really scares them, that maybe they might have to change. And the best way to ensure they don't have to change is to make sure we fail. So they can say, look, I told you so, now come back into the herd with the rest of us. Stop trying to be different. So even though the development of our emotional intelligence has shown to guarantee career, personal, and corporate success, without that emotional connection to a desired result that's stronger than our fear, we won't be willing to do the work that getting those results requires. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that really does answer the question, right? And one of the biggest challenge when we see leaders or even like the common people in the corporate world or even in businesses, when we go through a certain challenge and when we fail, right? So our mind starts saying that you are not worth it, you can't do it, it's not possible, and then people get stuck there and they're not able to move forward. So how do we take care of these things, and then how do we keep moving forward? Because this is something that some of the successful people do, but most of the common people get stuck there.
The difference is that people that succeed in achieving their desired results don't view failure as failure. They view it as information of what didn't work. Two examples. When Thomas Edison had a vision of developing a light bulb, it actually created, I think it was about 1,800 experiments before he invented the light bulb. And somebody said, gee, that's a lot of failure. He said, what do you mean? He said, it just took me 1,800 experiments to build a light bulb. I learned 1,799 ways not to make a light bulb. He didn't consider it failure. The same thing with Walt Disney when he was creating Disney World. He initially got turned down by over 2,000 banks when he was trying to create the funding to begin construction. And Disney World he actually died before Disney World was completed. And somebody at his funeral said, gee, isn't it too bad that Mr. Disney never got a chance to see his dream come true? And the person said, he was talking, he said, really, he did. He saw it before any of us. See, he had a vision of a desired result that kept him going until he achieved that success. He didn't view failure as failure. He viewed it as information. And every time he got turned down by a bank, he made his presentation a little bit better until such time as he was able to generate the funding he needed to begin the construction. So when we allow our fear, when we allow our ego-based fear to control us, we view failure as failure. And it's really not. It's ego-based fear. The more emotionally intelligent we become, we simply view failure as information, not as failure.
Right, absolutely. Right. And those were some good examples. And I love that term ego based fear, right? It's our ego, and it's also that fear that actually stops us. And whereas successful people see it as a learning, see it as information, and they keep moving forward. Now, well, you were sharing about Walt Disney, right? You also spoke about how he saw that as a vision. Now, how important is it for leaders to be visionary, right? And can any leader be visionary, or is it important for them to be emotionally intelligent again to be a visionary leader?
I want to remind you that leadership's not a position. It's not a title. It's something everybody on the planet needs to become. We need all to become leaders, regardless of what we do for a living. And as I mentioned, the first step in developing our leadership is that emotional connection to a desired result that fuels our action, that motivates us to leave our comfort zone in pursuit of that desired result. That is the essential first step in getting on the path to achieving all of the results we've been talking about.
Right. And while we grow as leaders again, right, there are times when we go through self doubt, right? So, how do you actually overcome that self doubt and then keep moving forward?
Hang on for a second. I'm just looking at a comment somebody made here. It says sometimes fear developed ego
Just to
just to
hide it.
hide that ego. um, Fear doesn't develop ego. Ego develops fear. Our ego
Mm.
always wants us to feel greater than or less than, but never equal to. Um, and it uses fear to try and keep us out of the present moment. And the present moment is all that's real. The present moment is all that will ever be real. There will never be a future moment, and there's not a past moment. This moment is the only time where we can take an action and generate a result. But our egos don't want us to be in the present moment. So it tries to use fear. It tries to get us to imagine some type of better future moment or some type of past moment that stops us from being more fully present in this moment. And the person most present is most influential. The more present you are, the better the leader you are, the more emotionally intelligent you are, the better results you get, the more conscious you are of what's going on in you and around you. So really, we're not our egos. We're the observer of our egos. Um, we're never going to change our ego. Our ego is like an appendage that's outgrown its usefulness, like a appendix. Um, so doing the emotional labor of developing our emotional intelligence actually breaks us away from our ego-based fear. It creates a separation that allows us to view our egos and recognize that we are not our egos. Um, and that creates freedom. That creates freedom from fear. That creates agency and all of the other great benefits that I've mentioned.
Right. And Phil, since we are in this era of like the very fast changing technology, right? So now a lot of times we hear in the corporate world that if you take decisions based on emotion, right, there are high chances that you would fail. So how do you segregate between taking decisions based on emotion, and how do you actually like still take decisions where you are emotionally intelligent?
The first part of what you said there is people talking about making emotional decisions based on fear.
Hmm.
Okay, that's very different from making emotional decisions based on love, based
Okay.
on emotional intelligence. So when you make decisions coming from fear, that always leads to not great results. That always leads to increasing levels of drama, chaos, and conflict, and increases the distrust and toxicity within the organization. But when you make decisions based on emotional intelligence, the opposite occurs. People become more engaged, more trusting, which leads to far greater results. So there are emotional decisions based on fear, which are not good, and there are emotional decisions based on emotional intelligence, which lead to exponentially better results.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I can recall what my mentor says, right? That people make decisions based on emotion and they apply logic to it later, right? That's
Actually,
one part of
that's a
thing
good
as well.
point, and that's true. All of our decisions are made initially out of emotion. It's part of the limbic part of our brain. So the
Right.
decisions we make first out of emotion, and then after we've already made the decision, we look for features and benefits intellectually to justify the decision we've already made emotionally. And if we go back to our example of Apple, you may notice, if you think about it, that they rarely talk about features and benefits. They talk about why they've created their product or service they've created. So they're trying to connect with the people they serve emotionally. They're trying to explain the emotional reason for why they created the product or service. And then they may talk about features and benefits. So the emotion, the why, is the emotional connection. The features and benefits are the how and the what. So the greater your why, the easier the how and the what. So people make decisions, purchases emotionally first. They trust you, they don't trust you. And then after they've already decided what they're going to do, they look for features and benefits to justify intellectually the decision they've already made emotionally.
Right. And absolutely agree about that why and how and what you mentioned, right? The first comes the why. And this is something I again learned from even Simon Sinek when from his book Start With Why. Makes a lot of sense for those leaders. Now, Phil, you have been working on your passion, right? That you were in a great industry, semiconductor industry, and then you followed your passion. You started coaching executive leaders into executive coaching and all of this. Now, how important is it to be passionate about whatever we are doing, like in our career, especially?
Huge. Our passion, our energy level around what we're doing is the indication, is the compass we can all use to determine what living and working on purpose means for us. And when we're following our passion, that's when people are going to give us the most shiny beads. Um, because really, money has no value. Money was created as an intermediary step to attract your greatest wealth, which is your passion. So the more passionate you are about what you're doing, the better the results you'll get with less effort and have more fun.
Right, great. I'm just looking at something you shared with me that can be like given as a gift to people. Right, I just wanted to throw this surprise at people who are listening to us right live, and of course, people who are going to watch us later as well can grab this benefit. Right, where Phil has been uh, kind enough to share with us certain things. Right, I'm going to share out here. Right, the audiobook and the meditation that's going as a gift for all those people who are there with us, right? And I'm sharing it on the platform so people can grab this copy. And again, on the YouTube stream, I'm going to add this on the comment section so that if people have missed it by chance, they can grab it from here. Now, Phil, we want to also talk about the MBL that you run, right? You have been doing this program for quite some time. Who can benefit with this program, right? And what is this program all about?
Everybody can benefit from this program. Uh, the Master Business Leadership program is is a 4-month, 16-week program that provides all of the benefits that we've talked about here today. Um, I highly recommend everybody to begin investing in the development of their emotional intelligence. Whether it's with me or with somebody else, it's up to them. But it's you will not regret developing your emotional intelligence. The ROI is phenomenal, and it will guarantee your success. It will guarantee the rest of your life will be the best of your life. Um, and the sooner you get on this path, um, the sooner you'll be able to experience these results. Because of the accelerating rate of global change we're facing, the need for and development of our emotional intelligence is inevitable. There are already many companies and individuals that have already gotten on this path. So emotional intelligence is going to become a multi-trillion-dollar industry because it's a significant part of our evolution. It's a significant part of our development, of our education that we never got, and we need now more than ever. So I would highly encourage your listeners to bet on themselves by developing their emotional intelligence.
Right. I agree. Completely agree. And I strongly believe in having a mentor in life. And I'm sure, Phil, people who are listening to you, the audience, if these people can pick up a mentor, if they want to grow in the emotional intelligence, become that emotionally intelligent leader, right? It can be absolutely like you are that best person because you come with huge experience that you carry, right? And it's not about just the theoretical part that people are trying to learn from other places. It's all about the experiential learning. It's all about coming from your experience, putting it in terms of the case studies and learning from there. I think that will be wonderful for all these people who want to grab that. And also, you have written multiple books, Phil, but I want to ask you about this one specific book that you have written, The Servant Warrior Leader. What is this book about and what does it cover so that our audience, if they want to grab that copy as well?
I actually wrote that book. It might have been the first book I wrote, and it was published I wrote it in 2006, and I think it was published in 2007. Um,
Mhm.
in many respects, it was a book describing the journey to the development of leadership and emotional intelligence and the obstacles standing in our way. So it's kind of a little bit of a primer on what it requires to achieve dramatically better results. And really, I wrote the book for me. I wrote all of my books for me um, as a way of helping me to better understand um, these concepts.
Right. And thank you for being so kind for sharing the audio book. All right. That we have shared the link here with the audience so that they can grab that audiobook for free. And also the meditation that you have set up, the MBL meditation that we are sharing with the audience, that they can grab it as a gift. Right now, it was a wonderful conversation with you, Phil, coming from your huge experience, you sharing it in the last 1 hour with us. But before we conclude, do you want to share any message to our audience?
Um, I just I'll stress that if you want to succeed in your career and your personal life, the key to that success is your emotional intelligence. If you want to become a more inspirational leader, if you want to become a more trusted advisor, the key to that is the development of your emotional intelligence. if you want to free yourself from your ego-based fear, the key to that is the development of your emotional intelligence.
Wow.
Developing your emotional intelligence will literally enable you to outcarry your competition.
Of course. I think I love the last bit here where you said it will help you to outgo your competition. You don't have to be worried about competitors there when you actually building that emotional intelligence and becoming that emotionally intelligent leader. I think that is the key for success in leadership. So thank you, Phil, for being with us and then sharing your knowledge, your experience, and also giving those wonderful gifts in the form of audiobook and meditation to our audience. And it was great having you on Dream Career Talk Show.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity and a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And thank you for all the audience who have been live with us, who have been interacting, especially the ones who are engaging, like Khaja, Tosif, Gulab Rai, and others there. And also for people who are going to watch us later on the recording, right? Don't forget to grab the copy of the audiobook and the MBL meditation, along with all the learnings that you're going to get here for coming from the great experience of Phil Johnson, who is there with us, on this particular talk show. So thank you once again, everyone, and take care. Have a good day. Yeah. Bye.